Hello! For those of you that didn't know, I am a film student. I took my first film theory class this semester and learned so much about the way film works. I remember Brandon saying before how a series, Blame the Hero, works much more like a full-length movie, following the 3-act structure. Now that I know what that means and have too much time on my hands, I wanted to explore this idea and analyze Blame the Hero from a film student perspective, more specifically analyzing how Blame the Hero follows and subverts classic Hollywood conventions. Every film following the 3-act structure begins with the inciting incident. This is essentially the event that disrupts the order of the universe and starts the action. In Blame the Hero, the inciting incident would be Blame ordering the time machine. Without this, there would be no story. The first act sets up the story by introducing the main characters, setting, tone, and main conflict. This is all done in A Day at the Beach and Episode 1. The climax of Act 1 would be the introduction of Bryce, as this concludes the setup and gives an emotionally charged introduction into Act 2. Act 2 in any film is the longest act because it contains the majority of the plot and conflict. Throughout the act, there are several obstacles the main character faces, in this case including Bryce and Bobby's interactions, Blame's trip into 1865 to kill the Minchworthies, and going back to the beach. Somewhere in Act 2, there's a midpoint reversal, which is basically where the goal changes. Usually at this point, the film could end if the midpoint reversal didn't take place to push the story in a new direction. In Blame the Hero, the midpoint reversal is 100% when Elmer's apocalypse is revealed in Episode 6. If this did not take place, the story could end at Blame stopping Bobby's apocalypse. Instead, the goal changes from stopping Bobby to stopping Elmer. Blame meeting the assassins would be the climax of Act 2, beginning the final act. Act 3 serves as the resolution to the conflict. It includes the main climax of the film, which is the major emotional release the audience has been waiting for. The main climax of Blame the Hero would be the final fight between Elmer and Blame, in which Elmer is stabbed with a poisoned knife and falls to his demise. At this point, the conflict is resolved and the denouement begins, which is a fancy word for wrap-up. At this point, any loose ends are tied up and the film is left to an irreversible conclusion. This is done beautifully through both Lima's speech at Blame's funeral and Bryce's presidential address. As you can see, Blame the Hero perfectly follows the 3-act structure, which is one of the main features of classical Hollywood storytelling. Comparing classic Hollywood tradition with art cinema and other more experimental storytelling methods, Blame the Hero takes certain characteristics from both of these styles. Traditional films involve a goal-oriented protagonist faced with a conflict, pursuing their goal under a certain timekeeping mechanism and ending with an irreversible conclusion. While this is a lot of big words, Blame the Hero does heavily follow these guidelines. Blame is our goal-oriented protagonist, though his personal mindset and methods of achieving his goals are less conventional. The conflict is clear throughout the series, and I would say the conflict itself is time. Blame has to reverse the damage he has done through time travel before more damage begins. The techniques of art cinema and experimental storytelling come through much more in the way the story is told. There's a concept in film called the director's presence, basically meaning whether or not you can tell who the director is while watching a film. Typically, in traditional Hollywood films, the director disguises their presence and wants you to focus on the story like you were a fly on the wall. In avant-garde cinema, director usually acknowledges their presence through specific angles, shot arrangements, or other signature touches. Being a YouTuber with a significant following, Brandon Rogers very much acknowledges his own presence throughout Blame the Hero. There are multiple references that fans would recognize or jokes that break the fourth wall. For example, in Episode 6, when Elmer says, "There are a lot of people that look exactly like me," while looking at the camera and winking, this is referring to both the fact that there are many Elmers and the fact that Brandon plays every main character. This is not a joke that would be included in traditional film because the director-audience relationship does not exist in that realm. Brandon employs innovative technique throughout the editing process, using montage and intercutting to convey the events artistically. This is another element of art cinema not as commonly found in classic Hollywood. One of the most interesting features of Blame the Hero to analyze from a film student perspective is genre. People initially call it a comedy, but I believe it goes much further with that. One could say Blame the Hero is an action-adventure film, with the comedy coming from the subversion of normal action-adventure characteristics. Someone else could say Blame the Hero is a comedy, with moments of drama and high-energy action woven throughout. In reality, these ideas are all correct, and I have no idea how Brandon does it. These genres are woven together so well through the rich storyline and strong artistic vision. There is so much information and sensory stimuli packed into every frame that it takes multiple watch-throughs to really digest the message and emotional color of each scene in each episode. Speaking on genre, which is where I plan to end the essay, I realized that I could not talk about genre without speaking on characterization. These characters are what makes the series excellent. Blame is one of the most fascinating protagonists to me because of how unassuming he is. His 2-minute introduction video, Thug Got Secrets, creates Blame to be one of the flattest characters I've ever encountered, meaning the character has very few traits or much depth. Blame the hero somehow gives him an emotional arc while still remaining static, meaning the character does not change much throughout the film. The comedic element from the subversion of action-adventure genre that I referred to earlier mostly comes from our protagonist. We are given a hero that is idiotic and selfish, but still manages to save the day. Despite rejecting the voice of reason time and time again, he does the job of the protagonist and even, finds a romantic connection in the final episode. Another fascinating character, if we can even call him a single character, is Elmer, the emotionless shell-turned villain. He came from a place where he was figuratively a slave to a higher power, as a store clerk, park ranger, office assistant, and other similar titles. Throughout Stuff and Sam, we learn that these Elmers are literal slaves to a single higher power, Bryce Tank Thrust. Introducing the oldest Elmer and giving him autonomy is what elevated this character to another level, allowing him to eventually become a villain. Making Elmer one of the main villains of the series was such an intelligent choice because of how much he contrasts with Bryce Tank Thrust and Bobby Worst. They are incredibly flashy. They love to proclaim from the rooftops how evil they are and lead powerfully. On the contrast, Elmer is incredibly unassuming. He's quiet and low profile, and his villain origin story comes from the desire to finally be noticed. All of the villains in Blame the Hero show the wide range of places where evil can come from, which is an incredibly interesting topic to explore. Overall, as you can see, so much can be pulled from this series, especially from the analytical perspective of a film student like myself. Honestly, no one on YouTube right now is creating content to as high of a caliber as Brandon Rogers, let alone for free. It takes an incredibly intelligent mind like his to create a show that works like a real film and is equal parts hilarious, dramatic, high energy, and beautiful. Looking deeply at this work like this has made me grow to appreciate it even more, and I hope it has done the same thing for you. Thanks for watching!